Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues, we'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, we finally got some good news, man. It seems like everything that happens to this team this season has just been the worst. And you saw the Jayden Daniels injury on Sunday night. It looked gruesome. And you thought that this was definitely the end of his season. Would he be ready for the offseason? How long would the recovery process be? Yada, yada, yada. Your mind was allowed to wander and think about the worst case scenario because, again, it looked bad. However, after it had all, kind of calmed down a bit, and you heard from several people who saw the injury that are actually of the medical profession, they said, hey, a lot of positives here. One, not his throwing arm. Two, may not be as bad as it may appear. Got to see what happens with the MRI. If there's no ligament damage, he doesn't need surgery. It's not as bad as you think. It looked bad. It may not be as bad as you think. So there was optimism, but again, you needed x-rays. X-rays came back negative, so that happened rather quickly. Then you had to wait for the MRI. Those were supposed to take place Tuesday. We heard from Dan Quinn on Wednesday. He said he'd have more of an update on Friday. Today was Friday. We got the news very early this morning from Adam Schefter that the team was electing not to put Jayden Daniels on injured reserve, instead opting to reevaluate him over the bye week. Translation, no ligament damage, no fractures, no surgery is required. That is the best possible outcome for the Commanders in this situation. So, on one hand, our king is safe. Celebrate! We dodged a bullet. So, there is reason for excitement in this gloomy, dark season that Jayden Daniels, no matter what, is going to be fine. However, and I say this with the utmost appreciation for his health, this was great news, but it was a gift and a curse. Here's why. On one hand, I am elated, ecstatic that this man does not have to have surgery, that this injury is not as serious as we thought, and there is a chance that he could come back this season. However, the downside is that he could come back at some point this season, which is not what I wanted. I can't speak for you, but I was done seeing Jayden Daniels on the football field this season with this team constructed the way that it was constructed, has been constructed with all the injuries. I didn't need to see Five back out there again this season. Now they have hope that Five could return at some point this year, which I didn't need to see. The offensive line isn't terrible. It's not like you're putting him at risk behind this offensive line. You're putting him at risk because he doesn't have anybody to throw the football to. Now, if you tell me, which they're going to reevaluate him over the bye week, which is when I think Terry has a chance to come back, Noah Brown has a chance to come back. If you tell me he's getting the gang back together and everybody's showing up for the Week 13 game versus Denver, then all of a sudden, you got my attention. But if you're telling me he's coming back to throw the football to Robbie Chosen and Chris Moore and Trey Burks, please keep Five off of the field. I beg of you, please. So, on one hand, I'm excited. I'm elated. I'm ecstatic that Five doesn't have to have surgery and that he's A-okay. A disaster averted. On the other hand, I'm like, Does this mean you're going to try to put him back on the field again this season? I'll say this. This feels selfish on the part of Dan Quinn. Things aren't going well right now. And in order to save, I shouldn't say himself, because as a head coach, when things aren't going well, you take the blame. You have to bite the bullet. You have to fall on the sword. And you want to end this losing streak. You want to end this poor play. And the guy that gives you the best chance to do that is Jayden Daniels. And so selfishly, I think Dan Quinn wants Jayden out there because Jayden gives him the best chance to win. But in a lost season where there's really not much to gain, and I get all the people that Jayden needs more reps. He needs to be on the field. That's the same shit that got him in his predicament in the first place. He needs reps. That's why he was out there in a 31-point blowout in the fourth quarter. He needs reps, right? It's the same argument we have with the preseason. If you're not a preseason fan, then why would you want Jayden Daniels in at quarterback in a lost season where at the best this team could do is 4-7 at the bye. Technically speaking, they could be 5-6. They're not beating Detroit this week. You know that. I know that. And anybody that's been watching this team, you don't even have to be watching them the entire season. If you've been watching this team over the last 3 weeks, you know they're not beating the Detroit Lions on Sunday. So with that said, you could beat Miami, get you to 4-7. You're not making the playoffs. Playoffs? Not making the playoffs. You're done. So why would you want to put him on the field if you're done? But there's a whole host of people that feel like he needs reps. If he's healthy, put him out there. I just want to have a fresh start in 2026. That's all I want at this point. Doesn't feel like that's going to come to fruition because they're going to put him out there. And again, I don't have any qualms with them putting him out there if he's going to have a full complement of receivers to throw the football to. If Debo's out there, if Terry's out there, just give me those two and I'm fine. But if Noah wants to come back, if he's still a real human being, if he's still a real person and not a figment of my imagination, and he's out there too, great. You know what? Let's see what, because I told you from the jump, I just want to see what it looks like. We really didn't get to see what it looked like at the beginning of the season. Terry had just gotten here. Noah still wasn't really practicing. It still was disjointed. We really didn't get to see what it looked like. Week 1 was still a work in progress. By the time we got to week 2, Noah was out. Or by the time we got through week 2, Noah was out. Austin Eckler was out. Jayden was out. And the rest was history. That started the downturn of the season with all the injuries. Offensively, I just want to see what it looks like. But if you tell me, not sure when Terry's coming back, Noah's not a real person, then I don't need to see 5 on the field. So that's just my thought process. But hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Our King is safe. And that is reason for celebration. Celebrate! Feels good to get some good news on a Friday for once. Boy, did we need that. I tell you. Anyway, let's move on to in other news where we heard from Dan Quinn. He said a number of things today. We'll get to what was said by Dan Quinn. But before we do that, let's get to the injury report for both teams, starting with the good guys in week number 10. And as we know, Jayden Daniels not going to play in this game. Terry McLaurin not going to play in this game. Eddie Goldman, questionable with a concussion. So he was tested on Sunday night versus Seattle for a concussion. He passed, but obviously some lingering effects. limited Wednesday, full participant Thursday, full participant Friday. I've got to believe that if everything goes well, Eddie will be out there on Sunday. I have no reason to believe that he won't be. Quan Martin, dealing with a hamstring injury, didn't practice Wednesday, was limited Thursday, full participant on Friday. He's questionable. I've got every reason to believe that Quan Martin's going to be out there on Sunday. Tyler Owens, hamstring/neck, didn't practice Wednesday, limited Thursday, full participant Friday. He's questionable. I have every reason to believe he's going to play on Sunday. So right now, and then everyone else that is on this injury report has been removed, does not have an injury designation, and is going to play on Sunday. So this is a very non-threatening injury report when you remove the two best players on the offensive side of the football from it, right? So I'm cool with everything that's here. Trey Amos, going to be fine. Bill, going to be fine. Johnny Newton, fine. Laramie Tunzel, fine. Bobby Wagner. And the return of Colson Yankoff. He's missed the last 2 weeks. He's going to return from his hamstring injury. So all of this looks good, right? All this looks good. So you transition to the ops and their injury report. And there were a few names that we were keeping an eye on. Not that it matters, but Miles Frazier out with the knee injury. Kirby Joseph was one of those names. Didn't seem like he was going to play. He missed the first 2 practices of the work week. He is out yet again. They've been just fine without him. They don't really need him for this game. However, that is good for us. He is a ball-hawking safety. Pat O'Connor, defensive lineman, he's going to be out. Jacob Sailors, he's out. Josh Pascal, a backup defensive lineman, he is out. Taylor Decker, probably going to play. Feels like he's going to play. They're starting left tackle. That was another name we were keeping a very watchful eye on. And his backup, the swing tackle, Dan Skipper, back injury, questionable. My guess is he's going to play as well. All the other names on this list that are questionable are insignificant in their roles to this particular Lions roster and this particular game. So Decker feels like he's going to play starting left tackle. They're already without their starting right guard, Mahogany, and they're not going to have the services of starting safety Kirby Joseph. So you do catch a break there, but it feels like Taylor Decker is going to, in fact, play in this game. So we transition to what DQ had to say today. At his press conference, he started off by listing his captains. Offensively, Chris Rodriguez Jr. That is foreshadowing, folks. We will talk about him a little bit later. Deron Payne is your defensive captain. I would have traded Deron Payne on Tuesday. Special teams captain, Jeremy Reeves. So he then gave a Jayden Daniels update, and it basically said that Jayden does not have to have surgery. He didn't have any ligament damage. They are going to reassess him during the bye week to figure out what's the time frame for him potentially coming back. Could he be back against the Denver Broncos after the bye on Sunday Night Football? Are the Commanders and Broncos even going to stay in that Sunday night slot? I think a lot of that is going to be determined by Jayden Daniels' health. The NFL, I would assume, doesn't want to get rid of Jayden Daniels in a primetime spot against one of his fellow 2024 first-round quarterbacks if they can help it. However, after the embarrassment of the last Sunday night game against Seattle, they may have second thoughts. Our record isn't very good. They may just say, to hell with it. Let's see if there's something better and get this game the hell out of there. They've got a little bit of time, but they usually like to give teams a heads up about 2 to 3 weeks ahead of schedule. So if they're going to do it, probably going to have to do it very soon, like next week early. So I wonder if the NFL will just keep that game there just off the strength of Jayden Daniels not having to have surgery. I'd like to believe that if Jayden Daniels did, in fact, have to have surgery and was placed on IR, they would have went ahead and already moved that game out of the spot. I still would have moved it if I were them, but that's nor here nor there. So Jayden Daniels, no surgery. Thank God. Now the question becomes, when will he be able to get back on the field? That's the question for them. For me, hey, see you in 2026, my guy. but feels like they're going to try to get him on the field as soon as possible. And look, let's be honest here, right? When it's all said and done, Jayden Daniels and Terry McLaurin both went to DQ and said, do not put me on IR. I'm going to Madrid. And every single one of us would have done the same exact thing. And those two are two of the few guys on the roster that could go to management and say, hey, I'm making the trip. Chris Rodriguez can't do that, right? Luke McCaffrey can't do that. Will Harris can't do that. But Terry McLaurin and Jayden Daniels can do that. Hey. Don't put me on IR. I'm making that trip to Madrid, bro. Hell you talking about? F they talking about. I'm going to Madrid. Those two will be with this team when they go to Madrid. We'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later on because DQ did have a question about that. Ain't no way in hell Jayden and Terry are being left behind. That's why they were smiling so damn big today because they both said, hey, don't y'all drop me. We going to Madrid with the team. You damn right they are. So he was asked about Mikey and Jonathan Jones and the inside-outside versatility. Really, it was more so this question was geared towards Mikey, but he made it a Mikey Jonathan Jones answer initially. Talked about both of those guys being played inside and outside all summer. But the primary place where they want Mikey is inside. He was asked about what did they learn about Mikey's ability to play outside last year, and he talked about it. And they're not interested in putting him back out there if they don't have to, right? Like if push comes to shove, if something were to happen to Jonathan Jones, or Trey Amos, God forbid, then he would go back outside and Noah Igbenogany would jump inside. But if they've got two guys they trust on the outside, they're going to keep Mikey right where he is as a nickel because that's where they see him developing and being at his best in the NFL, right? So we saw the reason why they don't want to put him outside for full-time basis. He's too small to play out there. We saw it in the NFC Championship game against A.J. Brown. While he played well against A.J. Brown, the first meeting we had in Philadelphia on a Thursday night, that was cool. That's not feasible for 17 games during the regular season and any playoff games. Like you see a big receiver like Mike Evans, or you see a big receiver like A.J. Brown, he's gonna struggle. He's not big enough. They had a Make-A-Wish kid come in today. I thought it was pretty cool, man. They put a video up. DQ talked about it for a little while. It was really dope, man. It's always cool to see, kids that are not of the best health, and it's, I don't know if it's always terminal with Make-A-Wish kids, but, it's just always a tough situation. It's always cool to see the smile on their face, man. There's been a lot of down days, when you're in that program, and to see them be out there, they treated him like he was a free agent. You know how every time they sign a free agent and bring that guy on board, everybody's standing in the foyer waiting for that guy to come through the double doors. There's music playing, and they all like go off when the guy walks in, gives them a standing, ovation. And they did that for him and had him break down practice. They had his jersey in a locker form. It was pretty dope, man. It was awesome to see that. It really was. Then the recalibration. He was asked about year 2. Last year was all about the recalibration. This year, is the recalibration still a thing? And he thought for a second, and he's like, it's a good question. Yeah, no, we're still recalibrating. But you do what you did last year, and it changes the timeline, which it did. But, we're still, trying to figure things out. And you can see that with this roster. It is not a finished product. Far from it, in fact. We knew that going in, but it's even more apparent now after the injuries and seeing how this team has just not had the depth available to stay. And what's crazy is this was spelled out to us in the preseason, right? That Patriots game in the preseason as a whole, we weren't competitive, largely uncompetitive the entire summer. And that was because of our lack of depth. And we talked about, should this team ever have to tap into its depth, we are in trouble. But that's not where our head was. Our starters aren't playing. These guys aren't going to be really impactful. These guys aren't going to be in the mix when the season starts, when this thing really counts. We shouldn't have to worry about these guys seeing the field. Well, that's exactly what happened, and you see the end result, right? He talked about Will Harris and the impact of Will Harris and, him being a former corner, converted safety, the communication skills, all the things we've heard about Will Harris and his departure with the injury. Then he talked about Will Harris, the competitor, how the day he got injured against the Raiders, he told the staff, I'm going to be back on this date, yada, yada, yada. And they said the way that he's working and how he's putting himself in a position to come back has been tremendous. And they love that he's back around his teammates and back in the building, etc. They really are putting a lot of onus on this Will Harris thing. Like, they're acting as if when Will Harris comes back, you'll see this defense whip into shape. I'm like, hey, pipe down. You signed Will Harris to a 2-year, $7 million deal, if I'm not mistaken. Like, relax, okay? Will Harris is a solid player. Let's not overrate his value to this defense. We definitely missed him, and I think people underrated his contribution and what he meant to this defense. But let's not turn him into some urban legend now, all of a sudden, because he's injured. Let's not turn him into Sean Taylor, okay? Because that's what it feels like that's starting to happen. Like, they're turning him into this larger-than-life figure at the safety position. He's just Will Harris, okay? Calm down. He was a part of that Green Bay game when we were getting cooked by Tucker Kraft. Let's not act like we were shutting everybody down and then he got hurt and all of a sudden the defense couldn't communicate and then we started getting spanked. He was a part of that Green Bay ass whooping. He was out there for the early stages of that Raiders game when we made Geno Smith look like Rich Gannon, MVP Rich Gannon. Keep in mind, Geno Smith is throwing interceptions against everybody. He threw 3 touchdowns and damn near 300 yards against us. No interceptions. Will Harris was out there for the vast majority of that in the first half. So let's not act as if Will Harris had this defense humming on the back end. First play of the Raiders game was a bootleg, and where the hell was Will Harris for that? Gave up about 50 yards to Jacoby Myers inside the damn 20-yard line. Let's not act like Will Harris is some sort of superstar. Some former Pro Bowl, all-pro safety. He's just Will Harris. Let's pipe down a little bit, folks. Thanks. The run game. Again, foreshadowing. He talked about the run game a lot during his press conference and how they want to run the football. Put a pin in that. We're going to come back to that conversation. I like this next thing that he talked about. Changing meetings in the focus in the classroom. So again, you're not having success. You're searching for answers. You don't actually know what you can put your finger on to say that this is the problem. Why do we keep giving up big plays? Why are guys not communicating the way that we need them to? Why aren't they playing as fast as we need them to? We've scaled things back and we're still giving up big explosive plays. How can we help these guys get better? You can't stop searching for answers, right? I love that they are continuing to change things. Don't keep doing the same damn things expecting different results. So he said they changed up the meetings, how they go about it. They've had more visual, hands-on walkthroughs. He's challenging players, asking them, why did you do this? Why, what's the role here? Why would you do this? Why would you do that? Right? Really being more hands-on with these players to try and get to the bottom of all of the issues that are ailing this team on both the offensive and defensive sides of the football. He was asked about tough conversations with the brotherhood. And he said that's a part of it. That's always been a part of it. He said there are tough conversations after wins. So none of that has changed. He said, and he said this before in the past, you don't have to be a dick when you're, correcting someone or when you're challenging someone. He's like, I challenge guys after practices. Yo, what the hell was that about? Like, what kind of effort was that? Like, these things happen all the time. So he's like, it's no different right now. The only difference is we're struggling as a team, but the tough conversations always take place. That's a part of the brotherhood, right? He talked about the QB room and the team dealing with all the changes. He said the QB room is one of the strongest rooms they have in the building. And so despite Jayden being in and out of the lineup, Marcus having to pick up the slack, that group has been phenomenal. The team has really rallied around the quarterback position, despite the in and out nature of, Jayden in the lineup, things of that nature. And he said that if there was one room that could handle all of these changes, it's the QB room. He said the biggest thing that has affected the team is the fact that there hasn't been the consistency with the reps, the consistency with one guy being under center, being able to work with these new players that are constantly cycling in because of injuries. It's just been a team-wide phenomenon where you guys are getting hurt at the receiver position, guys are getting hurt at the quarterback position. You're moving around pieces on the offensive line. And so there's been, a lot of shuffling of the deck offensively, and it hasn't allowed for that continuity and consistency that you would like to see. He then talked about game flow and increase in walkthrough. So again, changing the way you do things to look for different results. Again, I love it. And I hope it has the intended effect that they're looking for. He was asked about Jordan McGee and whether or not he's a middle linebacker or is he an outside backer? And if he is, in fact, a middle linebacker, when do you intend on giving him opportunities to prove that he can do it if you've got Bobby on the field? Again, another Ben Standing special. If I got to say, we talk shit about Ben Standing sometimes, but he's not afraid to ask the tough questions, right? The shit that we want to know. And so DQ basically said, look, we've been cross-training Jordan at all the linebacker positions. And so he's gotten reps in practice in the summertime at both linebacker spots. And, when you're on the field in our nickel, you are essentially responsible for both linebacker spots. So we have confidence that he can do it, but you still need to see it on the field. You need to see him taking those reps. You need to see him with the green dot on, communicating, getting everybody lined up like Bobby does so often. And I think that's something that you would love to know before next year. But again, we'll see what they decide to do. But they love what they're getting from Jordan McGee. And as Joe Witt Jr. has stated, they want to continue to find ways to get him on the field. I thought this was a great question. I forget who asked it, but as a defensive coach, how does the struggles of the defense impact you? And what is your frustration level with the defense struggling so much, being that you're a defensive-minded head coach? And DQ said, what do you mean? How frustrated I am, how mad I am, and upset about the defense playing the way it's playing? On a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 10. Like, I'm pissed off. Like, this is ridiculous. This is not what we do. And he's like, yeah, I'm more involved now. They talked about the walkthroughs and they talked about, him being a little bit more hands-on with what's going on defensively, because he's like, this is not how we get down. And so, yeah, he definitely. And I've always said, you can't be on one side of the football. Like most guys that get the job are either an offensive-minded guy or a defensive guy. There's the rare occasion like a John Harbaugh where you're a special teams coach. But for the most part, you're either an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator before you get a head coaching job. So you have a specialty. What's the thing that you do well? What's your superpower? For DQ, it's supposed to be defense. And this defense for each of the first 2 years here in Washington has stunk to high heavens. So he is going to be looked at and under a microscope because you're supposed to be the guy that helps this thing turn around on your side of the football that you're supposed to be specialized at, and it just hasn't happened. So he's not oblivious to that. And then he talked about, to finish up his presser, who stays and who goes to Madrid. And he's like, we'll get a better sense of that next week. All I was thinking about was Jayden and Terry. Like, I'm going. I don't know about everybody else, but I'm definitely, all them other injured dudes, I don't know about them, but we definitely on that plane. When the wheels are up, we up there on the plane. So he said he'll give us an update on who's staying and who's going to Madrid next week. So in any event, before we transition to our keys to the game, and it's going to be a little bit different today, right? I don't really feel the need or the sense for keys, but I do have some things that I want to talk about going into this game that I expect to see. All right. So we'll get to that in a second. But before we do that, let's go ahead and get a word from our sponsor, Sleeper. Come back on the other side and we'll dive in to that conversation. Sleeper is the best way to experience and connect over sports together. It's a one-stop shop for all of your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat in the games in real time with other users, get the fastest scores, blazing fast news and alerts right at your fingertips. Play in fantasy leagues and win real money on picks contests. So enjoy sports the way they were meant to, together. Download the #1 sports app today. Predict the hottest football stats like passing yards, receiving yards, touchdowns, interceptions, and much more to cash in on your daily fantasy football skills. Use promo code LTN and Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. Sleeper. All right, so we are now with the game plan. And instead of me giving keys to the game, I don't think that's necessary this week. Because, again, I just don't see any way in hell this team wins this football game. I don't even see a path to competitiveness in this game, to be honest with you. I don't think it's going to be as bad in the first half as it was last week, because you can't get much worse than last week's first half. As a matter of fact, I don't think you can be any worse other than turning the ball over. Like, you'd have to turn it over on every possession, and every possession that you turn it over turns into a touchdown immediately. We did see a team give up 70 like 2 years ago, right? So trust me, it can get worse. But for a team that was attempting to be competitive, you can't get much worse than what we saw last week. I don't think the Lions are going to do that to us in the first half. I do expect them, however, to score more points because the Seattle Seahawks had mercy on us. The Lions will not have mercy on us. They want to score 100 if they can. They're pissed off coming into this game, knowing what we did to them last year. They have no sympathy for us, no mercy they're going to give us. If they have a chance to score 60 in this game, they're going to run it up. I don't think they're going to get that opportunity, but trust and believe that they want to kick our asses in this game. And we have to come out with a sense of urgency from the opening kickoff, or else they will do exactly that. So here's what I see happening. These are all things that I expect to see on Sunday. Some of these are duh, Louie T. You're not telling us anything that we don't already know, but I'm just, again, might be stating the obvious. If you're out there, shout out to Captain Obvious. I might be stating the obvious, but I'm just telling you based off of the conversations that I've had with people. And more importantly, most of this stuff that I'm telling you is based off of what DQ has said at the press conferences on Wednesday and now on Friday. This is what I expect to see from the team. So, first thing, Commanders will try to make a concerted effort to run the football. I think you're going to see the run game be more prominent in this game than it has been all season long. Now, I didn't say effective. I said prominent, meaning they're going to run it more than you've seen them run the football over the last month. I'll go a step further and say the last 2 weeks against Kansas City and Seattle, don't know what the rush totals were in that game in terms of the amount of attempts. I'm going to go ahead and say you can combine those attempts. That's how many times they're going to run the football. You can combine those attempts. If it was 17 versus Seattle and 17 versus Kansas City, you're going to see at least 34 attempts on the ground. That's a lot for us. We don't run the football a lot. All right. Even when shit was going well on the ground, we weren't running the football a ton. We just were having explosive. We were averaging the most yards per carry through the first 5 weeks, which is why we were the number one rush offense. It wasn't because we were steadily running the football and sticking with the run and having stick-to-itiveness. We just were maximizing the runs that we got. I think you're going to see them. And DQ this week has been adamant. I don't give a shit if it's a 1-yard run, a 2-yard run, a no-yard run. We got to stick with the run because we got to set up play action fake, which is going to take me to the next thing that I think is going to happen in this game. The Commanders will try to take some vertical shots down the field. Look, I don't know who the hell these vertical shots are going to. Chris Moore, Trey Burks, Jalen Lane. Don't ask me where the hell these vertical shots are going to be taken. Debo, maybe. Mariota and Debo have had some success hooking up on deep shots in the past, most notably the Week 4 contest versus Atlanta. However, DQ wants to run the football so that they can set up opportunities to take shots down the field. I think DQ feels like we're making it easy on the opposing team's defense by not taking vertical shots, by not backing them up. Teams can be aggressive. They can challenge. They can blitz. They can stop the run aggressively without any fear of the ball going over their head. We didn't even try to throw the ball vertically last week. We didn't even try. We didn't even really try against Kansas City. We had one deep shot attempt against Kansas City on the 4th down and 1. We had the Terry throw where he dove, right? So I guess 2. If you had the Terry deep ball that he down the sideline that he dove and caught, the one that he got re-injured on and re-aggravated the quad on, and then you had the deep ball on the 4th and 1 that was thrown to Terry but really was thrown to nobody. So we really didn't take any vertical shots against Kansas City. We didn't hurt them for being aggressive, but we tried because Terry was out there. Just not enough, I believe. Whereas last week against Seattle, there was no attempts made at taking advantage of the aggression that they showed. And I don't think we chucked it deep against Dallas. And I think DQ is chalking that up to a lack of consistency in the run game. They're not going to fall for play action fake. They're not going to come up and be aggressive attacking the run if you're not threatening them with the run. You got to make them respect the fact that you're going to run the football. And then when they are aggressive attacking the line of scrimmage, which it feels like they've been doing all season long, well, this second half of the season post Week 5 feels like they've been attacking the line of scrimmage aggressively with immunity, right? With impunity, with no fear of punishment for a vertical shot over their heads. I think DQ feels like they have to take some vertical shots in this football game. I think they will. I'm not saying they're going to be successful, but I think you're going to see them run the football a lot more in this game. I wouldn't be shocked. Normally, Cliff's MO is to come out and be aggressive with the pass. Now, when Mariota plays, I will say we do see a more concerted effort to try to run the football early in games, like the Raiders game, for instance, like the Falcons game. Remember, we came out, Chris Rodriguez had the big-ass run on the opening possession against the Falcons, right? You do see a more concerted effort to run the ball when Mariota is in there early. When Jayden's out there, you might go 5-6 plays before the ball ever, is handed off, right? It's throw. But I think you're going to see them run the football and then try to take some shots down the field. Defensively, you are going to see, and this is a duh, Louie T, we know, but I just want to reiterate this because there's been so much conversation about Mikey going outside in the cornerback room, and with Marshawn Lattimore injured, how are you going to reshuffle the deck at corner? Is it time for Mikey to go back outside? I don't think they're interested in Mikey going outside. Neither am I, personally. Neither am I. I know he played well last year outside, and maybe he's better suited outside. Maybe that is where he needs to be. I still contend he needs more reps inside, and I think they need to use him better. But I don't think the utilization is going to change this season. But the more reps he gets, I hope the better he gets. It may not change a damn thing, and he may just stink in man coverage. Who knows? But I fully expect Jonathan Jones, Trey Amos as your boundary corners, Mikey Sainristil inside in the slot. And again, this is a no-brainer with the injury to Marshawn Lattimore, but I think it needs to be said anyway. Noah Igbenogany will be active for the first time in 2 weeks. He's been healthy scratch each of the last 2 games. They don't have that luxury with Marshawn Lattimore out, so expect him to be active and ready to go in the event that somebody doesn't make it through the entirety of this game. Here's another thing that I expect to happen in this game. Debo will be featured heavily in this football game. I think you're going to see a heavy and steady dose of number one touching the football in a myriad of ways. He's going to touch it in the run game. They're going to get him a jet sweep very early in this game. It wouldn't shock me if the first play of the game is a Debo Samuel run of some sort. Wouldn't shock me in the least. All right. We remember that early portion of that Kansas City game, Debo was heavily involved. He was going right. He was going left, and obviously he had the, ball, bounce off his face mask and be intercepted. But he was heavily involved early in that game, but not often throughout that game. I think you're going to see Debo early. I think you're going to see Debo often in this game, and they're going to really try to get him involved. I think this is going to look a lot like the Atlanta game in terms of his involvement, not necessarily the production, but I think it is going to look like the Atlanta game in terms of we got to get Debo active and involved in the football game. And then lastly, I expect both teams to be super aggressive on 4th downs. You know why Detroit's going to be super aggressive on 4th downs. That's their MO. That's their calling card. It's what they do. So that's not a surprise to you. We got to keep them out of those 4th and manageable situations because they're not going to punt in this game unless they're pinned deep. And even then, you still got to be on your P's and Q's, Y's and Z's. We've seen them fake a punt deep inside their own territory at like their own 25-yard line. We've seen them fake a punt and be successful at it at that. So I think you're going to see them, being that they're already pissed off, that they really want to take it to us. I think you're going to see them be aggressive from the word go. I think the Commanders are going to match that energy. Think of this as the Kansas City game. They know how dynamic and explosive this Lions football team is. They scored the 2nd most points in the league. That is not lost on Dan Quinn. Expect them to come out here, and you're going to hear Dan Quinn on the sideline interview say, hey, we're going for it, man. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to take our shots. And so that's going to be the mindset. They're going to go for it in this game. So expect them to be aggressive on 4th downs. I'm not saying that it's going to amount to points similar to the Chiefs game. It may not amount to any damn thing, but you're going to see this team be super aggressive to match the energy that the Lions are going to bring into this game because we know they're going to be aggressive on 4th downs looking to score. All right, so those are the things that I expect to see happen. When it's all said and done, though, I'm not fooling myself, and neither should you. I can tell you right now, my drug of choice, hopium, that shit is sweeping Commanders Nation, taking it by storm. These people that have taken that hit of hopium are chasing a ghost, right? I've seen more upbeat posts on social media today based off of the Jayden news than I saw all of the entire week combined as we all waited for the news of what his situation was going to be. So many people are like, if Mariota can go 2-2 during the next 4 games, I'm like, whoa. 2-2? Wait a minute. 2-2 over the next 4 games. You think Jayden's going to miss that many games and then come back? Maybe, but even if that's the case, you lose to the Lions, you beat the Dolphins, you come off the bye, you lose to the Broncos, but then you beat the Vikings. And you got 4 games left, all against divisional opponents. You're still 4-8. You are 5-8 at that point. you're still cooked. You're not getting to the playoffs at 9-8, folks. You've lost to every NFC team imaginable at that point. Add another one to the list after tomorrow's game against Detroit. You're not making the playoffs as a wild card. Your only shot, and I told you this when I injected the hopium and told you what the hopium checklist involved. I said, you got to go after the division. You can't lose any more than 7 games if you're trying to win the division, which means you only got room for one more loss. Well, you're losing on Sunday. So unless you plan on going on a 2012 run down the stretch, pack it up, okay? That's what the Lions are going to do to us on Sunday. Pack us all the way the hell up. 41-21 is what I see the score being. I'm being very generous with the 21 points for the Commanders. I wanted to stop it at 17. I just don't know when the field goal comes. If you get it early, then I could see 17. But once you get down big, field goals aren't going to do you any good. You have to score touchdowns. So I think this score is 41-14. We get a late garbage time touchdown to make it 41-21. The Lions are going to, I think they're going to start not slow, right? But compared to what the Seahawks did to us last week, it's going to seem a bit slow, right? They're going to score on their opening possession, but they're not going to score on their second possession, right? But then after that, they're going to score, and they're going to score again. We're going to score a touchdown. It's going to be 21-7 at halftime. We're going to lose the toss. Now, I don't know if they're going to, defer to the second half. I don't know where their heads, is. They may decide to take the football and just jump on top of us and never let us breathe. Whatever the case may be, this thing gets away from us like it did against the Chiefs in the second half. Like, it's a respectable ball game at halftime, maybe 14-7, maybe 17-7, where we're not getting our doors blown off. You're like, hey, this isn't bad. And in the second half, the wheels officially come off of this thing, and they run away and hide. And this thing gets pretty bad in the second half. And it's 41-14 at one point, ultimately 41-21 is your final score. For those of you who haven't given up on the season yet, kudos to you. This one's going to be tough to get through. This one's going to be tough to get through. This one has a chance to be worse than last week from the standpoint of the scoring dynamic, because Seattle, if they wanted to, could have scored 50 last week. They just chose not to. They said they're down, no need to kick them. They're already down. There will be no such mercy given by the Detroit Lions. If we're down, they're trying to kick us as hard as they possibly can on some Ken and Ryu kick shit, right? They're really trying to have you internally bleeding. All right. This is blood sport for them. And they're not letting up on us. They get us down, they're going to try to keep us down. So this could get to 50 on Sunday. This could get to 50. Trust me, it's going to be bad. Really, really bad. But if I had to tell you there's a silver lining, this is the last game of the season that you have to worry about getting to this type of ass whooping. Denver could get ugly from a defensive standpoint if their defense is peeling on our offensive line and whomever's at quarterback that night is uncomfortable, has happy feet. It could get ugly from that standpoint. But I actually think our offensive line is going to be able to stand up to Denver's front. And so I'm not as concerned, assuming that our front remains intact. But we'll see. We'll see. Only one way to find out, right? Anyhow, guys, buckle up. Sunday is going to be a very, very bumpy, not fun ride. But this is what we signed up for. When you became a Commanders fan, this is what you signed up for. So here we go. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders Nightly News. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys on Sunday. Also, Saturday, I'll have the skill game for this game. We'll do a couple picks. But other than that, I will see you for the post game of this game. It's going to be nasty. You know it. I know it. So just prepare yourself. Until then, I'm your man Louie T, signing off. You guys have a good one. Take care. God bless. Enjoy your weekend. Peace.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap. Hand to Riggins. Good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone.